At one time, he was the king of hip-hop, one of the early pioneers who took his music and culture and turned it into hundreds of millions of dollars, establishing himself as a true power broker in the world of entertainment. Sean Puffy P. Diddy Combs has gone by many names and nicknames, but now he has another title, federal indictee. Diddy has been accused of engaging in sex trafficking and racketeering, charges that could keep him locked up for the rest of his life. The allegations are serious and include recording lewd acts, forced labor, kidnapping, arson, bribery, obstruction of justice, and other offenses. Prosecutors say he abused, threatened, and coerced women and others around him to fulfill his sexual desires, protect his reputation, and conceal his conduct. Diddy has denied all the allegations, and again today, trying desperately to get released on bond. We'll have all the latest and take a look at all the legal issues in this super high-stakes case. I'm Vinny Politan. Great to have you with us here on Closing Arguments. What a day. Another day. You know, I'm looking at this case involving Diddy, Sean Combs, Puff Daddy, P. Diddy, whatever you want to call him. In the allegations, they put a range of times on when this conduct occurred. And I still can't get out of my head that it's since 2008. And there's a couple of ways to look at this. First, we could all be shocked and a little bit disappointed that someone could engage in this type of behavior, if it's true, since 2008 and get away with it. Since 2008. On the other hand, we could look at it and say, okay, it's 2024, and just maybe, all of us are looking at this conduct differently. Law enforcement is looking at this conduct differently and is now doing something about it. So, half empty, half full. We'll see as this case progresses what the truth is about all of it. Now, this is extremely serious for Diddy. Everything is at stake. So for his defense, everything is on the table because he's facing life. He's convicted, he's done. He'll never get out again. Think about the contrast. Mansion on Star Island down in Miami, mansion in LA, the nicest hotel rooms everywhere, rubbing elbows with the who's who in the world of celebrity and politics as well. All of that was part of his life. Then you end up in a cell like that for the second half of your life. Maybe a little less than second half. He lies about his age. I look at this case, and I remember we covered the R. Kelly case, and I'm wondering, is this the same blueprint? Because both are, you know, in the entertainment industry. Now, obviously, R. Kelly is in a different place financially than Diddy is, but the allegations seem somewhat similar, that they're using this fame and this power and this celebrity and this money to coerce certain conduct. And it all comes back to fulfilling their sexual desires. You've got this case coming out of New York. R. Kelly was indicted in a couple places, including New York. So the question is, will it have the same result? Will Diddy end up the same place where R. Kelly has ended up? And there, you know, if you go back 5 years, go back 10 years, go back 50, would you ever imagine that something like this would be possible? Someone who's literally a mogul. But maybe that's why. Maybe when you have everything and you can get whatever you want, it's just never, ever enough. And you got to keep pushing the envelope. But he's presumed innocent. Let's take a listen to the charges against Diddy. Here's the U.S. Attorney.
Today I'm announcing the unsealing of a 3-count indictment, charging Sean Combs with racketeering conspiracy, sex trafficking, interstate transportation for prostitution. The indictment alleges that between at least 2008 and the present, Combs abused, threatened, and coerced victims to fulfill his sexual desires, protect his reputation, and conceal his conduct. As alleged in the indictment, to carry out this conduct, Sean Combs led and participated in a racketeering conspiracy that used the business empire he controlled to carry out criminal activity, including sex trafficking, forced labor, kidnapping, arson, bribery, and the obstruction of justice. Let me say a little bit more about the charges. The indictment alleges that Combs abused and exploited women and other people for years, and in a variety of ways. As alleged, Combs used force, threats of force, and coercion to cause victims to engage in extended sexual performances with male commercial sex workers, some of whom he transported or caused to be transported over state lines. This office is determined to investigate and prosecute anyone who engages in sex trafficking, no matter how powerful or wealthy or famous you may be. No one should doubt our commitment on that. A year ago, Sean Combs stood in Times Square and was handed a key to New York City. Today, he's been indicted and will face justice in the Southern District of New York. Second, we are not done.
I hope Mayor Adams changed the lock. So we know yesterday Diddy was trying to get out on bond and went before the federal magistrate judge. It was denied. And then today he was in front of the district court judge, again, trying to get out on bond. Let me put up some of the things that were proposed by his attorney. And $50 million. That's a lot. That's a lot. I don't know if I've seen that amount before as a proposed bail package, but that was it, $50 million. He was willing to restrict his travel to the Southern District of Florida. That's where he's got the mansion in Star Island. The Southern District of New York, the Eastern District of New York, or the District of New Jersey over the river. His passport was already surrendered to his attorney on April 1st, 2024, and the attorney will provide this passport to pretrial services. So he's surrendering his passport, as well as members of his family who surrendered their passports after the raids on his homes. Meanwhile, opposition to the motion said the defendant poses an ongoing and significant danger to the community, has repeatedly engaged in obstructive conduct, and presents a serious risk of flight. There are no conditions of bail that would assure the appearance and compliance of the defendant or the safeties of others. Yesterday, the judge denied bail, citing he was too dangerous. Today, the judge refused to grant bail, saying the government had proved by clear and convincing evidence that no amount of bail could guarantee the hip-hop mogul won't tamper with the witnesses. And that seemed to be the biggest concern, because that's part of the alleged conduct here in the way he, number one, reacted to the civil lawsuits that were filed against him. And obviously a lot more at stake now. It's not about money. It's about where you're going to be sleeping and living the rest of your life. His attorney spoke after court today. Let's take a listen.
So we made a bail appeal to Judge Carter. It did not go our way. The fight continues. We're not giving up by a long shot. I told Mr. Combs I'm going to try and get his case to trial as quickly as possible. I'm going to try and minimize the amount of time he spends in very, very difficult and, I believe, inhumane housing conditions in the special housing unit of the Metropolitan Detention Facility. And I'm going to do everything that I can to move his case as quickly as possible. I understand that the government has a great amount of electronic devices that they have to download and provide to me, but everything's on the government's timetable, nothing's on the defendant's timetable, and they're going to have to accommodate me and him and give us a quick trial, and I'm going to be pushing for that. He's ready, he's focused. He has been ready to defend this case since he first found out about this case. Nothing has changed from his perspective. I obviously would much prefer to fight this case with him out of jail, and we are going to try to bring that about through additional legal process. But wherever he is, his resolve is the same. He believes he's innocent. I believe he's innocent, and we're going to fight this case with all of our might until we don't have to fight anymore. I'm not really going to take any questions, but at this point, we are moving forward. We're preparing for trial as we speak, and we are considering our next steps and appealing the court's ruling from today. All right. Thank you all very much.
Again, this case is taking us back to the R. Kelly case. From my perspective, some things may be different, but there may be a lot that's the same. Joining me right now, special guest criminal defense attorney, former attorney for entertainer R. Kelly, Steve Greenberg is with us. Steve, great to see you. Thanks for joining us. Does this seem to you to be very similar and sort of like the R. Kelly case part 2?
Well, and it was giving me deja vu. You know, they are following the same blueprint where they're bringing a RICO case. When you read these allegations in the indictment, however, I think the conduct is more troubling. Certainly the allegations are of real sadistic behavior here, and you didn't have that so much in the R. Kelly case. I think Mr. Combs is going to have a much harder time getting out on bail. We tried 4 or 5 times to get Kelly out on bail. We appealed to the Second Circuit Court of Appeals, and we got shot down every time. Combs has far greater resources than Kelly had. He's got a lot more money. I've seen reports that he's possibly a billionaire. I am very pessimistic that he's going to be able to prevail and be released before trial, and he may be preparing for trial in the awful jail in Brooklyn.
So what is that jail like, and what are the challenges in preparing when you've got your client there in the jail in Brooklyn?
Well, that's one of the worst jails in the country for inmates, one of the worst federal jails. It's a pretrial facility where they hold people, and it's very difficult because you can only sit with your client for limited periods of time. Then they have count, then they have lunch, then they have lockdown. They have all sorts of different things. There's limits on electronics and what you can bring in. There's limits on what they can see. There's limits on when you can go, as opposed to having them sit in your office all day. There's limits on what you can talk to them about. It's much harder to prepare with a client. You don't have the luxury of picking up the phone and saying, hey, I was looking at this. I've got a question about it. It'll make it much tougher for them to prepare.
It seems in this case there may be a lot of electronic and digital type of evidence, videos. It seems like he was recording a lot of things that was referenced in the case. So can you even go over these things with your client? Can you bring a thumb drive? Can you bring a laptop? And can you guys sit down and watch these potentially insane videos?
Sure. Every defendant has a right to see all of the evidence in their case, except in a child porn case. Here, there's no allegation of child pornography that I've seen. It's adult pornography or lewd acts or sadistic acts. So they'll be able to show all of that to him. They'll get a court order. It'll be a protective order. They'll put him in a special room. They'll make sure that nothing leaves the room. He'll get searched when he leaves the room. The attorneys will have to show that they're going in with the things, they're leaving with the things, but he'll be able to see it. But it's a decided advantage for the government when a defendant is locked up pre-trial.
Okay, R. Kelly, obviously a celebrity. P. Diddy, another celebrity, maybe a little notch above P. Diddy, obviously financially is, but how about in the jail itself?
I think Kelly sold more albums.
He did. That's interesting. That's interesting. Obviously a much better singer. He's more of a businessman, Diddy is. So inside the jail, in the culture in the jail, would you have concerns for his safety? Did you have concerns about R. Kelly's safety?
Oh, absolutely. Kelly was kept by himself. Now I think he's still kept separate from some of the other inmates, or from most of the other inmates. Diddy will be kept by himself in some sort of segregation. He may be kept on a special floor probably with older inmates, white collar inmates, that kind of thing. The jail has a duty to protect him, and they have to make sure. You know, we saw what happened with Epstein, and we saw the outcry when something happened with him. If something were to happen to Combs while he was in this jail, it would be devastating for the Bureau of Prisons. So they're going to take every precaution they can to make sure to ensure his safety.
Steve Greenberg, appreciate your time tonight. I hope you'll join us as we continue our coverage of this story in the future. Thanks so much.
Sure.
All right, folks, when we come back, in studio, live, our think tank getting ready to go. Schiffer, Strickler, and Kessler lined up. Plus, coming up next hour. Tonight on Vinnie Politan investigates the tragic story of teenager Carly Gregg, who shot and killed her mother, then shot her stepfather, who survived. What does her body language reveal? Tonight, we investigate.
Join Court TV's Vinnie Politan
In every story, in every trial, every case, there's at least two sides to it.
to dive into the latest
Oh my God.
and breaking true crime stories.
This was a very targeted, very personal attack.
Inside
I've never seen that in Discovery. I've been incarcerated 3 years.
and outside of the courtroom.
She's a psychopath.
Now, let's look at the other side of all of that.
Vinnie Politan investigates tonight, 9/8 Central, only on Court TV.
The indictment alleges that Combs abused and exploited women and other people for years, and in a variety of ways. As alleged, Combs used force, threats of force, and coercion to cause victims to engage in extended sexual performances with male commercial sex workers, some of whom he transported or caused to be transported over state lines. Combs allegedly planned and controlled the sex performances, which he called freak-offs, and he often electronically recorded them. The freak-offs sometimes lasted days at a time, involved multiple commercial sex workers, and often involved a variety of narcotics, such as ketamine, ecstasy, and GHB, which Combs distributed to the victims to keep them obedient and compliant. As alleged, when Combs didn't get his way, he was violent, and he subjected victims to physical, emotional, and verbal abuse so that they would participate in the freak-offs, and that Combs hit, kicked, threw objects at, and dragged victims, at times by their hair. On one occasion in March of 2016, that conduct was captured on video and later reported in the media. Specifically, Combs kicked, dragged, and threw a vase at a victim in a Los Angeles hotel when the victim was attempting to flee. As alleged, these assaults often resulted in injuries to the victims, which took days or weeks to heal. In addition to the violence, the indictment alleges that Combs threatened and coerced victims to get them to participate in the freak-offs. He used the embarrassing and sensitive recordings he made of the freak-offs as collateral against the victims. He used his business and employees of that business and other close associates to get his way. Those individuals allegedly included high-ranking supervisors in the business, personal assistants, security staff, and household staff. The indictment alleges that those individuals facilitated the freak-offs. They booked the hotel rooms and stocked them with the supplies, including drugs, baby oil, personal lubricant, extra linens, and lighting. When the hotel rooms got damaged, they helped clean it up. They arranged for victims and commercial sex workers to travel for the freak-offs, and they delivered large quantities of cash to Combs to pay for the commercial sex workers.
I'm listening to this, and I hear the words, and I'm imagining what is going through someone's mind in planning and plotting all of this. And to use the coercion and violence, what's going to be the key to this prosecution? What's going to be the key to this defense? Let's bring in our think tank. Joining us tonight live in studio, family law attorney Randy Kessler, also with us, criminal defense attorney Meg Strickler, and criminal defense attorney, the man behind the glasses, Josh Schiffer. Okay. Why? I don't even want to talk to him yet about this.
I'm ready, man. I'm ready.
Oh, you're going to help? Randy, what is the key here? What is the key for prosecutors to go from the world of consenting adults to coercive behavior?
Well, I think they have an easier time when it's somebody who has that much power, right? To whom much is given, much is expected. The public is going to expect more from him than the average person. I think their burden is a lot less than it is in the average case, but they're going to have to prove that he had something to do with it. You can use the words conspiracy and RICO and business associates, but the buck stops with him. And, you know, that video that we all saw,
that's the violence, right? Like the violence I get. I understand that. How do you prove the coercion,
Easy.
Meg?
The videos are going to be so easy for the federal government to prove this. I am so confident. First off, remember how many federal indictments are dismissed, how many go to trial, and how many are convicted. Look at the percentages. He is going down, and I think it's going to be easy. Because of the video, they searched everything. They did a search warrant, and the defense lawyer even said there's a bunch of devices to go through. That's going to be a treasure trove for the government. Going to be easy.
That's if he actually even makes it to trial. That's a really horrible facility that he is in. And really, the names that keep going on in my head about who can be involved, these are people that care, that have lots of influence in the world. Mr. Combs existed on many planes in this world. He was business. He was entertainment. He was music. He was
the freak-offs that we're talking about here, the way they're being described, I don't know. I'm trying to get an idea of whether this is just Diddy and the person who's being coerced and abused and all the sex workers, everybody else sets it up and then he's there in the hotel, or is it him and a bunch of people?
The defense is consent, and these are all adults, and it took years.
When you say all, who are we talking about? Who do we think is in the room during
the
these
commercial sex workers?
We don't know yet. We know the commercial sex workers, but we know it's some of P. Diddy's friends. And
But
we
if
don't
they
know who
are, wouldn't they be charged?
No, they're gonna be charged. There's more indictments coming.
Yeah, this is
and
just
they're going to be turning evidence against him, right? All those people are going to come in. Why charge them? They want him.
There are 50 or 49 unidentified co-conspirators / victims / witnesses. One is specifically labeled as a victim, and we're reasonably certain who that is because of the video. The other 48 all sat down, and they do these interviews, and I don't know if you've spent time getting interviewed by the feds. Every question's
but in this
a trap.
case, do we believe that these are people who worked for Combs?
Yes.
Right, so he's top. Or are they... And I'm not saying any names, or is it like other record producers, other, I don't know, people in politics, other millionaires?
We don't know yet, but we will.
But if there was, wouldn't they be charged?
Not yet.
No, not yet.
Not yet.
You got to squeeze them first.
Wouldn't the federal government want to put that trophy out there?
Once your name.
He's the biggest trophy they're ever going to get.
Yes.
I mean, they got to get that
That's what
trophy.
I'm getting at. Is he the only one? Or, you know, because throughout the Epstein ordeal, the whole thing was about who else's name, who else are we going to hear? I don't know if that's the case here.
Well, he got silenced, as you recall, so we weren't able to get much information.
Right, but that's what the story was always about. Is this story begin and end with Diddy?
No.
This is bigger.
This is
Epstein,
bigger.
Way bigger.
A lot of people didn't know who Epstein was. Everybody knows who Diddy is.
Way bigger.
Bigger in what way?
The people involved that are going to be forced out in public because there's going to be corroboration. Who was at what place when these parties were taking place?
Josh, I got something for you. Take a listen. Here's some of the evidence that they believe they have against Diddy.
During those searches, agents seized evidence of the crimes charged in this indictment. They seized firearms and ammunition, including 3 defaced AR-15s and a large capacity drum magazine. They also seized evidence of the freak-offs, electronic devices that contain images and videos of the freak-offs with multiple victims. And they seized cases and cases of the kinds of personal lubricant and baby oil that Combs' staff allegedly used to stock hotel rooms for the freak-offs, more than 1,000 bottles altogether.
All right, Josh Schiffer, what do you think of the evidence here? Guns, electronics, and baby oil.
Well, first off, let's just talk about guns. It is illegal to deface a firearm or to take off the identifying period, end of story. It's the easiest layup for any federal agent ever. Yep. They can't lose that case. You go to jail for it. Now, when it comes to the baby oil, man, he likes to buy in bulk.
That one's no big deal. I don't care about the baby oil. It's the videos. It's the devices.
But we know from Epstein, those videos never come out. We know the Epstein videos are out there. They're never going to be disclosed.
They have to play the videos here to prove the case, don't they?
Because it re-victimizes people.
No, shut up. It'll come out. I disagree. It doesn't
There's so many more.
re-victimize.
People didn't mind being seen with Diddy. A lot of people didn't want to be seen with Jeff Epstein, right? That's not who you want to be seen around, even though there were some pictures. Everybody wanted to be seen, photographed with, videoed with P. Diddy.
There's going to be some videos leaked, too, I think.
Oh, yeah.
We shall see.